What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by Vermont Scale Customs. So 24 scale MOA has been on the bench now for the last couple of days. I've really definitely kind of gone full at this thing, just really wanted to get it built and back and running and everything, and I think I've got it to a point close enough to where I felt like it was good enough to do a video at this point. And so if you kind of remember way back about a year ago when I first started this project, I had just started basically with a Dashex Z2, you know, with its original chassis and original frame links and everything. And I think it was running on just like a single ESC with just a Y cable running out to these two motors. And the thing just ran terrible. I wanted to just give up on it immediately just because it was just so bad. Many incarnations later, it pretty much has arrived at where it is now. Earlier this evening, it was set up a little bit differently with the original links that I had made for it last year, which kind of brought it to the next point that it was at. I guess I made these sometime earlier this year, spring, I guess maybe somewhere in February, March or something like that. And so I had some offsets for the uppers and then some high clearance angle links for the, you know, for the mains. And it worked. It didn't seem to be too bad. I had plenty of adjustability, but I was just kind of noticing over the last couple of days when I was running it again, I was having a little bit of problem doing some breakovers. And so now, as one might expect, it has no issue with hard edge breakovers, and it seems to be able to handle doing them, you know, a 90-degree, pretty much almost, what would you say, almost 6 inches tall, I guess. It's got pretty much the power to be able to pull itself up and over. I'm still a little disappointed overall in the motor performance on the ESCs. I ended up going with two 10 amp ESCs underneath, and then running on FlySky radio. I forget what radio this is, but whatever comes with the G7P. And so all mixing is done with the G7P. And this is the stock servo that comes with the Dashex, which actually is pretty snappy. It's pretty fast. And then I'm running a 303S LiPo from Spektrum. Carisma shocks on there, hard park wheels, and Endura tires that have been cut for the crush locks. I also have on the insides here some brass wheel weights. And also too, while I guess while I'm kind of going over this whole thing, why don't I just show you quickly what these are all about. Right when I first got this thing, and one of the things that was such a major disappointment to me was how much play there is in these axle CVs. And so, find a pair of tweezers and I'll remove this pin here. So I have a pin set up, and then I have a washer set here. Tweezers are slightly magnetized. Anyway, if I didn't have that, you would see a massive amount of play. Not only in and out to where the pin finally hits the wheel, but you have just a ton of up and down, side to side. It just moves just way too much. And that's all because of the CV that's located in the outer side of this barrel. These axles come apart in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pieces, and then each of the shock hangers is held on by a different screw. It's unfortunate that this set of axles actually has, these were drilled in properly. This shock tower sits a little further back than what this one does, so no matter what I try, no matter how hard I try, these will always be out of alignment. So really it would basically take getting another set of axles to see if that same problem exists between the two of these. And it's not a matter of anything being flipped over or anything along those lines. So anyway, back to this nonsense. When I first got this thing out of the box and checked it out, I was like, you have got to be kidding me. This is completely unusable. Totally disappointed that I had spent the money that I had spent and waited the month to get the Dashex all the way from AliExpress. And so I started asking questions online. I started looking, and that's when I came in contact with the guy that goes by the name of RC Rock Crawler. And he was a huge help in basically kind of getting me pointed in the direction I wanted to be going with this thing, and basically told me, you know, what I was in for pretty much across the board, like if I had planned to push it to the next level. And so not only was I slightly discouraged, but at the same time I felt like, okay, cool, I know enough now about this thing that I can move forward. And so I think I built it like 1 or 2 times. The first time was just an utter failure. And then I think it was all because of electronics. I think the first part of this was all because my first failures with this was because I just kept putting the wrong ESC in this thing, just way underpowering 2 motors. And also too, I wasn't privy to channel mixing yet with the radio. I did not have the FlySky G7P yet. And so still just trying to push along with making this thing just work with 2 motors. Not really quite technically a true MOA yet, at least not with like dig function and stuff. And so anyway, blah, 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 blah. As you can see, you have to put that washer on and then you put the pin on. And then what that does is finally takes the play out of this. And then you have to properly adjust so you have no binding. But then that removes, I'd say, a good majority of that. Now, if you want it to lock in that position, be sure to thread lock that and tighten it down and adjust it right to where you want to be. That's something I have to kind of sort of repeatedly do to these every once in a while, especially if I make any adjustments or anything like that. So that's one way to remove the slop out of the axles. The other way is you just simply don't use these at all. And that takes all the slop out of them. No, so I had these links on here, and like I said, I was noticing problems with breakover capabilities and kind of lack thereof. So you can sort of see where this was before and where it is now. I definitely increased quite a bit. And then I had made these previously. These center links, these uppers were on it from a while ago. I decided to use those again and put a matching bend on here. So of course then it would all kind of reach that same point directly underneath there. Another thing about this too, this is all built on the NW Chassis Works Pitbull version 2. So this chassis has on its rails these oval slots, as well as like the standard screw holes for SEX24 plate mounting. And it's basically like you kind of get a little bit of adjustability if you have like kind of like the right setup. And so this has given me the advantage of being able to move the rear axle mount points to the front slots, whereas before I think I had them in the back and then another open hole here, but now I'm in the slots. And so those slots really kind of give me that adjustability for the wheelbase, which now currently sits at like 162, 163, which is great. I love it. It's perfect. And I don't seem to be gaining or losing anything, but I definitely get good full squat out of that and some nice rebound. It doesn't seem to be binding up too much. However, I do still think it's probably got a bit too much on the side-to-side articulation. I've noticed that this thing will track different lines and certainly get itself kind of caught up in some situations. So I'm probably going to work to try and limit the front shocks at some point in time. Not exactly sure how or whether or not I'll even try that. I might try some, I think I have some other barrel spacers just like these right here, which I might just unthread the piston and just go ahead and limit those from the outside, just so they'll stop short of being able to overreach and over-articulate. I could try and do some, relocations of mount points and stuff like that, which is still yet another possibility too. But I am all the way out at the end of this, and the further I move it back, the softer the front end gets, of course, and I end up losing a lot of the overall just rebound capability without having to put a bunch of preload on it. And I don't want to run with a ton of preload just because I like the front end to be able to sort of let loose when it needs to. And it's got sufficient amount of rebound, with no doubt. Sorry for shaking the camera, but at least you get to see what this is doing. So these are oil filled right now. I believe these have 10 weight in them, probably. I think. I can't remember. I put this oil in, I don't even remember how long ago, and it has never leaked out. They're A-okay. They never show any signs of any oil dripping or anything like that. So big fan of those Carisma shocks. Those are nice. These front links on here are actually Enjoras, and I believe these are 50 millimeter, but I swapped out the M2 rod ends. These were just perfect for the length that I needed, and it also gave me a little bit of clock for the front. Also too, while this looks like the servo's totally flat, do know that these are automatically clocked at about, I want to say these are probably pitched at about 8 degrees, the knuckles already from the factory. So as this thing sort of squats, I get probably pretty close to about 20 degrees of clock at worst angles. So if I'm up on stuff, this thing will definitely leverage in pretty easily. My only other complaint about this too is that's full lock. I wouldn't say that this gets much more than 45 degrees of steering capability, steering angle. So probably something at some point I will want to work on. And I think it's a CV limiting issue. No, I'm sorry, it's not. It's actually here. So I just need to grind probably a little bit away at the knuckle in order to be able to get those to push over. Just a degree or two more is really all it needs. What else can I talk about this thing? So yes, it runs. Where did I put the remote? I don't even know where it is right now. I think it's down here. I'm probably looking right at it and can't see it. Oh, let me show you this real quick too. If you're wondering at all how I got the nice curve on the links, stainless steel and all, previously I had just put this in a vise and just bent it over and matched my angles and called it good. And it's more than sufficient. Angled links are absolutely fantastic. I've used them for years. But if you want to be able to get a nice, smooth, consistent bend, this is probably the way to go. This is just a simple tubing bender that will bend, I think, up to 3/8 inch tubing, like brake line, stuff like that, 3/8 copper tubing or what have you. Obviously, it's oversized for this application, but it was more than sufficient to be able to put, you mark everything first, and I put them in with probably about 1/4 of an inch or so sticking past. So whenever it did start to bend and grab and pull, I wasn't going to lose the end and snap out and lose my bend point or anything like that. But I think when I initially loaded this up, it was probably at what you would say, these are like at the 15-degree mark, so that's like at 15, 30. So it probably loaded up with pressure initially on it at about 30 degrees, I guess. And I took those and bent those all the way down to about 90 and maybe kind of seated them just a little bit and then let those back. And so when they came back out, I'd say they were probably sitting at maybe somewhere in the 45, 6, 7 degree range, I think. A little bit past 45. And it's really been pretty, I've already just kind of taken a couple runs on the indoor course here in a few spots, and from what I've noticed already, it made an enormous difference in how it handles breakovers. It's so much better than it was before. Like I said earlier, I think it will handle pretty much just about anything up to about 6 inches or so, or just about 6. Power on the motors, these are the 500 RPM at the output. I have still the 60 and the 40s. Since I just got this thing built back up, I don't know if I really want to tear it all down again and throw in the 60 RPM up front and the 40 RPM in the back. The reason why I want to go 60-40 is with mixing on the G7P, it feels like you can overdrive the rear axle about 150% to the front. So if at 60 to 40 and at 140% or 150%, you get 60 and 60 and 60. So at full speed, you should have two matching rotational speeds at full throttle. I will say too that under the current configuration, you can kind of do anything you want as far as overdriving and underdriving both axles, and then you can shut the rear completely off, and then you can also dial the overdrive down enough that it underdrives so much that you get like a negative 10% overdrive. So basically the wheels will spin in reverse while you're digging to pretty much like really lock itself in or just make sure that it pulls itself around. It's kind of cool to see. It's not really strong enough to do it on the course on rock. It just does it on a flat surface like that. Once it's loaded up with a ton of pressure, it really kind of doesn't spin the rear wheels in reverse. It will just like kind of pull the front around like it's supposed to, like a real dig situation. So I'm incredibly psyched I've gotten it to this point. It's still got, I think, a ways to go. I think I'm going to end up running into power issues, brownouts in various situations that I probably just won't want to deal with. I still need to get a BEC just to run the servo. I still don't have a BEC, in which case I'd have to then wire up a three-way to be able to power off the 3S. I built a two-way just the other day to, of course, power both the ESCs separately off the same 3S battery to save space and everything. So I will need to tear it down again. I also, let me point this out too. This is a tray from either, I don't even know, the JLU or the C10. You can't really see it in here because it's kind of hidden by where the chassis is at. But I managed to bolt that in upside down here. And the ESCs are sticky taped, double-sided sticky tape to the back of that. With sticky back, I guess that's what it is, that foam sticky stuff. And then, of course, the radio's up on top. And I was going to shorten everything, crimp everything, and redo everything. Not crimp it, but just reheat shrink stuff. It didn't seem like it was worth the waste of time or the time investment to just put like one or two little wraps of coil in there and then just kind of neatly tuck it in underneath the roof with plenty of room to spare. So, and again, it doesn't really seem to impact overall weight bias. I think I've got a really good weight bias right now, kind of sitting just behind the front links. If I can find that balance point, there it is. So I would call that roughly a 60-40, and it's definitely front biased. So, I'm happy. I think I'm willing to call this done. I'm willing to run it. I'm willing to do some video. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Any questions at all, please ask. I know that a couple of you out there definitely will have a few things to say. RC Rockcrawler, I'm looking at you. I'm looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are on this thing. It looks great. I know that. Looks aren't everything. That's not the idea. It does run a heck of a lot better. Admittedly, I'm not 100% sure it's totally there but it is ever so close. If there's one change that I can make, I might end up running 20 amp ESCs, or maybe they're the 30s. These are 10s. I think they're either 20s or 30s. The only problem I'm going to have with that is just the amount of battery life that I'm going to end up eating up with 30 amp ESCs versus 10s. Of course, the performance is obviously the most important thing, so that's the big thing to consider there. And that too just means really just kind of pulling it back apart, throwing those in, resoldering everything, getting everything all resituated in here and putting it back together. So for the meantime, I'm going to run it the way it is. I'm going to see if I can learn it, if I can drive it, see if it's going to run. I know geometrically speaking, everything is, I think, where I want it. It's just unfortunate that it has such little mishaps, like, things like this being so off from one side to the next. I think the front's even a problem with that, but it's not quite nearly as pronounced on the front as it is on the rear. In fact, you can really see it, I think, from this angle where this flange sticks up much more on this side. What this is definitely rotated more. So anyway, great design with the axles, just so poorly executed. I do hope that someday we see a 24 scale MOA axle that comes out that's just going to blow our minds, that's really worth all of the time and effort that it takes to build one of these things, that gets the performance that we want out of them, that we can run brushless on it, that the gears aren't going to get destroyed, that it has good CV joints, all the adjustability. I know it's a dream world, but we're close. We're very close. I mean, these, like I said, this is a really good idea. It's just, it needs a little more refinement. Thank you all very much for watching and listening to me carry on about this thing. It's a project I've been very excited about, and I'm very happy that it's as close to what it is being finished right now as what it is. So, I mean, for lack of a better way to say it, it is done. So, with that, keep an eye out on the channel for the running video coming up. That should be here in a few days. I just want to do some testing, make sure that it stays in one piece. I don't want to just go filming and have it fall apart. So thank you. Happy Thanksgiving if you do that sort of thing. Whatever you're into out there. And yeah, hug your friends and family and all that stuff if you're going to see them this weekend. This will be the first Thanksgiving that I've ever celebrated that I'm minus one father. So me and my mother, of course, will be just kind of hanging out, chilling. And yeah, take it easy, and I will see you on the next video. All right.